Hey, this is Nick with your Phone Master team. Just left Atlanta, Georgia. Had a great meeting yesterday with my friend Larry Talbert. Larry is a magician, a Santa Claus, so he's an entertainer, but he's also an insurance agent, and he has probably the best insurance program I personally have found for what I do. I run different entertainment options out of my home, phone parties included, and have several people that work for me out of my home. Lots of bonuses with this program, and when I say value priced for what you get, you definitely want to take a look at it. So enjoy. I think insurance is probably one of the most confusing issues when it comes to any entertainer, and for me, I was super happy when I found you, because I feel like in the past my insurance has just been checking a box.
Right.
So when a client calls and says, "Do you have insurance?" "Yes, I have insurance. Can you add me to the policy?" "Yes, I think we can do that." I pay my money and it's done. But I think what you set me up with last year was probably, with my business having multiple people taking my equipment out, probably serves me better. Plus, it covers the different entertainment options that I have. Would you mind telling us just a little bit about the policy?
Sure.
Perfect.
Yeah, actually, what we offer, we have a program that we worked out with one of our carriers that's designed for entertainers of all different sorts. It's not just, I actually am a working Santa, hence the beard. I bleach everything out. I look all snowy white, and I become an amazing looking character. Just to let you know, if you
I should have mentioned that. So,
Yeah,
you're in the industry, and that's
so
what makes this really nice.
As an entertainer,
Right.
it was important to me to make sure that I had insurance also. I've been doing the insurance business now for over 40 years. I don't look that old, but I have been. And so anyway, I did like a lot of entertainers. I would go to the associations and I'd try and find an insurance policy that would cover the entertainers. And one of the things that I found was they had a couple of little association programs for entertainers, for Santas and things. And all of them only covered liability. They would only cover general liability. If in the event something happened in an event, they'd give you $1 million per occurrence with a $2 million aggregate, a very basic policy. But the problem with that was that there's a lot of other things that are a problem with entertainers. One, if it's a general liability policy with an association program like that, you have to be sued in order for it to be active. That can be a real problem. Let's say somebody just gets hurt, and it's not really through any fault of yours, but they were geographically close to you, and you're trying to give them a little goodwill coverage. Well, medical payments is a portion of a policy that you can add to a general liability policy where they'll pay up to the first $5,000 of medical expenses without having to be 100% at fault. It's more of goodwill type coverage to keep customers happy.
Make them go away.
Make the problem go away.
Right.
Exactly, without having to create a lawsuit. So that was one of the things that I saw was really lacking. The other thing, though, was we would all have our homeowners policy, and we'd be buying this equipment. We'd be buying our suits. We'd be buying our outfits, whatever it is that we do. If we're a clown or a Santa Claus or a magician or a balloon twister or
a phone party professional.
Phone party professional.
Right.
And you buy all this equipment, you take it home, you stick it in the garage, you put it in your house someplace, and all of a sudden it gets damaged because of a fire. Could be a smoke issue, could be the roof caves in and water damages everything and makes it so you can't use it. Well, the problem with that is that's considered business personal property. Business personal property is specifically excluded under your homeowner's policy. Some will add a small amount of coverage to their policies on an endorsement basis, or basically where you add the coverage yourself. But most of them excluded entirely. So now all of a sudden you've got all this equipment that's damaged, and you can't. You want to get it repaired and replaced, and you spend a lot of money on this stuff. Well, that's the reason we added business personal property to our policy. It covers all that equipment,
right.
And you can cover up to $100,000 worth of equipment at home under a business personal property portion of the policy. The other thing would happen is all of a sudden all this equipment's damaged, and now you had an event you're supposed to go to, and you have to cancel the event because the equipment's damaged, or you have to pay extra money to go rent some more equipment. Well, we added what's called business income and extra expense to the policy also, and it covers a loss of income. So let's say you can't go because all the equipment's damaged, we replace your equipment, and you've lost $1,200 in jobs, you've got a business income loss. Or if you went out and spent $600 renting the equipment to make sure that you can go ahead and do those jobs, you still spend money that you've lost. That would be extra expense to continue on with your business. And we'll take care of those things as well. A lot of us will go through and we'll do more than one thing. We'll be a Santa Claus, we'll be a clown, we'll be a balloon twister, we'll be a storyteller, we'll be a foam party guy.
Yeah.
And
a foam master.
A foam master, yes. And all those things, you can do all those. You don't have to add anything onto the policy. It just covers entertainers as a whole. So it's a very broad type policy. You don't have to join in the associations or anything. If you have to get a background check, they provide you with one within, I believe they're 10. I think you can get your first one free, and additional ones are $10 a piece that you can get through the company. They offer a business administrative type services also. So like if you need help with accounting, they have a business website that you can go to, and you can get additional business services if you need something special. Then sometimes you can get those. A lot of those are free services that they offer. Others, they have a discounted fee if you decide you want those as well. But what you're looking at in most cases, the policies range average for most professionals, roughly $300 to $350 per year. They can go down to $233 a year, depending on the type of industry that you're in, depending on geographically where you're at, because each state has a different type of program, and we operate in 44 states. If we don't operate in that state, we refer you to another professional that has the same access to the same program that happens to be licensed in that state. But rarely do we have that happen, because they're really odd states typically that nobody wants to do business there.
we won't list that.
I'm just joking. That's not the case. A lot of people do business in those states. It's just that it's very expensive for us to maintain licenses in those states by comparison to having them in others.
Right.
Hopefully I covered everything.
Yeah. Well, I'll take. So, there's a couple sticky points with me that I am really steadfast and firm on, that I wanted to ask you a couple questions about. We're in a really interesting place with foam right now. I say it's a very highly self-regulated industry. Mm-hmm. So there's not necessarily any standards, and we stress several things with Foam Master, like you don't put foam on a pool, because you can't see the edge. If somebody gets hurt, you're not going to know until the foam is gone, and by that time it's too late. And that's going to create claims, and that's going to create trouble in the industry, especially with insurance, and somebody gets hurt.
Right.
So when somebody does file an injury claim, how does or would that affect our individual policies or our policy as a group?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question, because what we have, these policies are not like a group policy. They're not like when you go to an association, they buy a master policy, you just become a certificate holder. You don't get a copy of the policy, you just are listed as an additional insured on that policy, which is not always what you want. You
right.
want and the problem is, if that group, somebody in that group all of a sudden has some horrendous claim, and they come back and say, well, we're done with this group, we don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
The programs that we offer is an individual policy that's written in your company name or individual name. So it's not a policy that your policy doesn't have an effect on somebody else's policy per se. Now, if everybody as an industry all of a sudden starts having all these horrendous claims, they say, hey, we don't want to do this type of business anymore.
Right.
So you want to kind of you don't want to just go out there all willy-nilly, and that's a great word, by the way, willy-nilly. You don't want to go out there and just start doing things that are unsafe because you've got insurance. You want to try to protect the entire aggregate of all the foam people in the industry, so that they don't have a problem getting insurance.
Right.
Because once that happens, you start getting a name in the industry, then you're toast as a collective.
Right. Yeah. Well, the one thing I've always said as an entertainer, if somebody gets hurt, I just feel like my job has completely not been done properly at that point. It changes the whole mood of everything. Plus, somebody got hurt, and I don't want that. I don't want that on my watch. So, So well, good. It's good to know that it's not affecting everybody per se,
Right.
but it very
Yeah,
well could, especially if there was a major accident. Yeah, so
And,
that's
and things that you can do from a prevention standpoint is having a good disclaimer, so that when you have people that come in and they're going to be doing a foam party, for example, you want to have a good disclaimer that everybody signs that says, hey, we understand there's innate risks with this, and here's what they
Right.
happen to be, and injury could occur. And once they've signed that, it doesn't mean that you're not liable,
Right.
because there's certain things that you can be liable for regardless if you have
Right.
it. But what it does do is it eliminates a lot of those frivolous suits where
Right.
somebody just slips and falls, and it's really not a big issue.
Right,
Just-
right. So that actually brings up another really good point. Every once in a while, somebody will bring up a waiver, and I know you and I have talked about this in the past. So a waiver is not necessarily needed.
No, you don't have to have it. It's not a stipulation in the policy.
Right,
Nothing says
right,
that you have to have
right.
it.
And
It's
we
a
also
recommendation.
right. It's also something I know you and I talked about, that this wouldn't be something that you as my carrier could provide.
Right.
That's kind of sticky. So we would need our own legal counsel to
Exactly.
do that. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
there's a lot of things when you start putting disclaimers together. There's online attorneys even that you
Yeah.
can get to help you orchestrate this type of stuff, so
Right.
it's not that expensive.
right.
There's services that you can hire, or if you've got a personal attorney and you call them and say, hey, listen, I just want a simple waiver, and this is what I'm trying to protect myself from, and they'll help you do that, and it's worth every penny, because they'll put the most recent legalese in it. So if there was something that changed in the courts between the time that you developed that piece of paper and them reviewing it, they'll make those changes, and that gives you just another person that you can pull in with you if it didn't do its job.
Right. So another question on waivers then would be, I know in the past I do printing for different people, and we've had people make like those A-frame signs, and it just says caution, foam zone may be slippery. Would something like that be any count, or would that just kind of be?
That's just prudent. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, to have something,
It probably wouldn't stand like a signed waiver.
no, it wouldn't. It wouldn't
Okay.
compare. Entering it, you assuming, basically having something on the assumption of liability. If you happen to be able to come in, if you do come into this area, there's an assumption of liability
Right,
on your part.
right.
Those are the types of things that you want to make sure. You don't want to make it so it's scary.
Right.
You want to make it scare people, but you want to make them aware.
Right.
And if you go to any of the houses or locations now, just about every place, including I think Chuck E. Cheese now, has some kind of waiver that you sign when you go in.
Mm-hmm.
If they've got little race cars or driving things in their location, they have a waiver. If they have bouncy houses, they have balls, they have things like that. Everybody has somebody sign a waiver saying, hey, we understand that you can get hurt on this stuff.
Yeah.
That's the reason we don't have lawn darts anymore, because nobody signed a waiver. Lawn darts
I don't
were
know who came up with that.
most amazing things in the world. You throw them straight up in the air, watch them come down. That's you can have color books in your future for Christmas for the rest of your life. So you can't buy them anymore. There's a reason.
Horrible.
No waivers.
Absolutely horrible. Well, I don't know. For me and my business, I've never done the waivers. I've never been interested in the waivers. The biggest reason is, like you said, I don't want to put that fear, in their head. It's definitely
People are used to signing them now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's something else that comes up, because I know in the bouncy house industry, which I know this doesn't cover anything mechanical.
We don't do anything mechanical.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So no inflatables in this. So
No,
sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about
That's a
that.
whole nother
You got a
ball of
mechanical
wax.
bull, you're gonna have to. You're on your own.
Yeah. Right. Right. So I know in the inflatable industry, though, like the contracts that they sign when they drop the bouncies off, that's a waiver that's signed
Yes.
between the client and the service provider.
Right.
Would and I know your answer could be you really need to talk to your lawyer about this, but and you can tell me that, of course, that's an acceptable answer. But would everybody need to sign that waiver, or could just the
No,
client
it's just
with the service provider?
whoever your agreement is with
Okay.
would be the person that would
Okay.
sign that way.
Okay.
And the thing about it is that their homeowner's policy would come into play, their liability on their
Right,
homeowners
right.
would come into play. So these are the kinds of things that we as insurance agents sit here and fret about all the time.
Of course, of course. Well, that's why I wanted to come and talk to you today, because I think it's really important for the health and safety, financial health and safety of somebody's
Right.
business, to make sure they are covered. This is something that I want to have, that I don't ever want to have to use.
Right.
So we talked about, and forgive me, I can't remember what you called it. We've talked about a lot today, and it's a lot for my little head. You talked about if something happens at your house and your equipment's in the garage, the coverage that would be. So would that be like stolen?
Could be stolen, could be damaged, could
Okay.
be, it could mysteriously disappear at an event. I don't know, there was last year they had a magician that had some specialized equipment, had a big trailer, they stole his whole trailer. He had no coverage. He didn't, and the reason behind it was he didn't find me.
Right.
Because we would have covered the trailer, we would have covered
That's
all of his
amazing.
equipment also. And this
That's
is very
amazing.
specialized stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He was the only one that used it.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
Like the robotic
It was like
stuff.
about $80,000 or $90,000
Yeah,
of stuff in this
yeah.
trailer, and none of that had coverage. And
Yeah,
he-
doesn't
and
take
he
long with
didn't
magic
know.
props. Yeah.
Has he been able to replace it? Who knows?
Yeah.
I've never heard
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But you have to be more cognizant about your stuff. And people think insurance. Oh, I bought insurance.
Yeah.
Well, you bought
Checking that
insurance
box.
for something.
Yeah.
It may not be what you thought you
Right.
were buying.
Right.
And that's really why we're here.
Right.
And because I am an entertainer as well,
Mhm.
I feel like I understand
Right.
as a user, not
Right,
only
right.
as an insurance agent.
Right. Yeah.
What
And
you guys do.
that's why I think this is really important that we've got you for this. So that would also cover like theft from my vehicle.
Yes.
That I was trying to not theft of my vehicle,
Right.
but theft of the stuff in the
Yeah,
in the
because
vehicle.
we cover your equipment at home,
Mm-hmm.
en route, and on set.
Wow.
So you've got coverage all three areas.
Wow.
You come back, you go grab a sandwich, you come back, and all of a sudden your
Yeah.
equipment's gone.
Yeah.
It can happen very easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff's not super heavy.
No.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be bringing it out there by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And it becomes very attractive to somebody else.
Right. Right.
And that puts you out of business.
Yeah. Fast.
Mhm.
Real quick and in a hurry. We did talk about it would cover like my subcontractors.
Yeah, we cover multiple people. We can cover up to 3 people working for you.
Okay.
Under this, with that, it'd be a subcontractor and employee. If it's over that, we have other products that we can put you in. But if you're a one-man show,
Mhm.
one man with a couple of kids coming with you, and
Yeah.
you don't have more than 3 people working for you at any given time,
Yeah.
then you're fine with this policy.
Perfect.
It's a home-based business. Now,
Yeah.
it does not cover you if you have an office space. That's not what this program's for. We have other programs for
Right.
that. But you can actually, if you decide you want to get a quote, you can actually log on to our website. There's 3 or 4 different ways to get to it. We've got www.talbertservices.com. TALBERT services
Mhm.
with an S at the end.com. Put it right there on the spot. If you like it, you can pay for it on the spot. And then you have an 800 number that they give you right there on that. You'll have a policy emailed to you usually within the day. If it's done over the weekend, Monday. And they do all the certificate issuances right there for you, which is kind of cool. If you don't want to go to a website, you just want to call and chat with me, you can always call myself, which is the easiest way to get me at, and I answer most of the time, 404-538-7978.
So you'd also mentioned, and I didn't know this, and you, which I know you've told me this, but it was almost information overload for me, I guess, when we talked before. And this is actually coming up for me for this summer and for a couple of clients. They wanted background checks. So that's
yes.
something that's it's unfortunately the world we live in today.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's important, and candidly, the people that you're sending out, even your buddies, How well do you know him? Yeah.
With this, you get a free background check.
Mm-hmm.
Additional background checks are $10, and it's a very simple process. You go online and you have a link,
Yeah.
so you can just go online, you can fill it out, submit it, and you can do it for your employees also if you want to do that. They, like I said, there's a $10 charge for each additional one, which is a lot less than most.
Yeah.
There sometimes is some state variances depending on if there's some special state that you're in.
Yeah.
But most of those I've run into are always just that $10.
Yeah, that's
the,
great.
The nice thing too is you don't always, like if you need certificates of insurance, for example, we have an email address you send those to, or you can call, and don't call me because again, I may be on my phone,
right?
I'll be in the car, in the truck, whatever.
Yeah.
You have a number that you call. There's a whole team of people that work for the company that are producing certificates all day. They do it all over the country. So they're there early in the morning, they're there late in the evening, and so you really you get your certificates very, very promptly.
So are we talking like the certificate when you just your proof of insurance?
Yeah, just a proof of insurance.
Okay, what about a client calls and says, "Hey, we need to be added to your policy"? Is that How does that process work?
There's two different methods. You can add them each individually, and it runs roughly $25 to add an additional insured. And that's if you're doing much with municipalities, with schools, with daycares, a lot of them will ask for things like that, or if there's a event venues. The other option is if you're gonna have more than 3 or 4 of those a year, is you just buy what's called a broad form additional insured endorsement. It's $100. It covers all additional insureds regardless of how many you have. You could have 200 of them if you are so inclined, but that's all included on that broad form additional insured endorsement. And it adds $100 to your cost, but it's well worth it. If you're going to be doing a lot of events like I'm describing.
Right.
If you're just doing residential stuff, nobody ever asks for it.
Right. Right.
In fact, it's rare that they'll even ask you for a certificate showing that you got coverage, which makes no sense to me.
I've done this for 30 years, and I think I can count on one hand how many times I've been asked for my certificate. So I really hope you found my talk with Larry informative. I think there's lots of little bits in there that, even if you don't go with Larry, listen to what he was talking about. And when you talk to the agent that you do decide to go with, you kind of go into it with a little bit of, what all does this cover? Because I think that's really important. So I'm going to go ahead and include Larry's contact information and the best ways to get a hold of him. That'll be on the screen after this. But that's all for me here from Foam Master for now. So y'all have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you soon.